This is Cece. Welcome to The Orbit. It is Monday, April 22nd. This is Income from Options Weekly. We've got the SPX up about 0.25%. But as you can see, we've seen a pattern recently over the last week or week and a half where a lot of these gap higher opens are immediately finding sellers. And we saw the same thing today. We didn't go into the red today, though. We sort of held in the green so far. As far as expected moves for the rest of the day, we are under 0.5%. We're at about 0.4%. You can see that up here at the top. And IV-wise, that is about 23 IV. It was higher to start the day. We constantly saw IVs. If we were in the red during the market hours last week, you would see 0 DTE IV spike up above 30. If you saw a day like today, what we're seeing so far, where we're slightly in the green and kind of bouncing around, you would see IV below 25. So we are seeing that kind of pattern, and what happens from here depends on what the market does next. If we break down below these lows that we just saw for the day and head into the red on the market, expect that IV to spike and perhaps get up above 30 if it gets ugly, and that expected move would then inflate and would be back over 0.5% despite the fact that a couple of hours have already transpired in the trading day, and that's how it's been working recently. If we go out to a 1 week view, we have about just under a 1.5% expected move. We saw that as high as about 1.8% at times early last week during all of that volatility. And you can see where those levels are on the chart. We've got levels of about 50-50 to the upside and about 4,900 to the downside. So what we have this week, we have a lot of earnings, and some of the biggest tech names start to go this week. We've got Tesla leads it off, and then we've got Meta, we've got Alphabet, we've got Microsoft, and that is something to be aware of if you are trading, especially like the SPYs and Qs, and that there are after hour moves that can happen, especially in that 4 to 4:15 time window after the close, 4 to 4:15 Eastern, where you might get moves. If Microsoft reports and it moves big, that is going to take the Qs and that's going to take the SPY with it. And you have to be very aware if you were short a credit spread and it was only $1 or even $1.50 or $2 out of the money, particularly in something like the Qs. So you have to be careful on those ones, and obviously in the individual stock names themselves. So the 1.5% expected move, let's just spin up an iron condor based upon that. Let's go out to the end of the week and just get a sense of levels. Not that this is a trade, but just to get in a sense of those levels. 49.10 short put, 50.50 long call. If you wanted to go up to, let's say let's take this up to the 575 level on a 200 wide iron condor. We've got 50.75 to the upside, 48.75 to the downside, and you can see that risk reward of about 150 is the reward, risking about 350 to try to make that. As far as 0 DTE trading, if we let's go into today, and those levels, you can kind of see those neatly by Fridays. That downside on the expected move levels is 49.60. You could take that obviously lower, closer to 4,900 or 4,925. But right now, that 3 to 2 risk reward based upon the expected move iron condor takes you up to about just above 5,000 and just close to 49.50 on the downside. And let's go into Meta real quick and just look at the setup. We've got about an 8.5% expected move. And just using this one as an example, well, we can come back here and we can see where that is on a chart. It's kind of going, you can see that recent move. A lot of these big cap tech stocks got hit pretty hard over the last couple of days. In Meta's case, that was from an all-time high, and you can see this prior earnings where we saw this huge gap higher, and we are approaching that gap level. And what that does with it is that is taking that expected move. We are now below the very recent highs to the upside on the bullish expected move. We are now below that gap higher level from the last earnings on the bearish expected move down here. You can go into this Meta details tab and come into earnings, and you can see how that compares to recent earnings. And we're looking, it was up 20%. That's that gap we just saw on the chart. But the two before that were very muted responses to earnings, around 4% moves, one lower, one higher. But if you go back in history, Meta is the type of stock that can move big. You've got a 14% gain, you've got a 24% gain, you've got a 25% sell-off, and then you've got some of these other ones where it barely moved. But it has a history of moving a lot, and if it doesn't, it barely moves at all. And it looks like options traders are trying to split the difference on that, and they're